Hi, thanks for watching. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to look at any piece of music and identify the actual notes that you're seeing, even if you've never read music before in your life. Now, most music teachers tend to teach note recognition by employing our memory. They'll point to a note and say, that's a G, and then you're supposed to memorize what it looks like on the stave. Oh, by the way, these 5 horizontal lines are called a stave. Now, they'll do this for all the notes and sometimes use a flashcard system to test us, and it can take weeks or months to start to memorize even the basics. And they'll use acronyms like Every Good Boy Does Fine, which you've probably heard before. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about actually gets into the theory of how we recognize notes, and it's something that even most professional musicians have either forgotten or never even learned in the first place. So what I'm going to show you is going to allow you to identify notes almost immediately, and you'll be able to remember this your whole life. All right, let's start. So to begin with, you need to know that music is made up of these 7 note names: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the first 7 letters of the alphabet. Now, there are variations on these notes called sharps and flats, but we're going to ignore those for this lesson, and we can learn those at a later time. Now, those 7 note names in order essentially repeat over and over. Start at A, go to G, then start over again at A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, then again A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and again A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. Theoretically, it could go on forever and ever. Next, remember that the note names actually go up and down in this order. B is over A, C is over B, D is under E, F is under G, G is under A, etc. So remember that. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, up and down, over and over again. You can see it here on this piano keyboard pretty easily. See the white keys? Now those black keys represent the sharps and flats that we're not dealing with in this lesson, but you can see the 7 note names repeating up and down on the white keys. Okay, here's the main lesson. What note is this? If you already read music, you might have said this is a G, or maybe you said it was a B, or even an A. And given the way most people learn music, all of those answers are correct. And at the same time, they're also all wrong. Confused already? Okay, check this out. Notes have no meaning on the stave until you place a clef on the stave. And there are 3 main clefs. They are commonly known as the treble clef, the bass clef, and the alto clef. But they are also known as the G clef, the F clef, and the C clef, and that's what's important to us. Now, when you understand how clefs work, rather than trying to memorize note positions, you'll be able to identify every note you see. All right, let's start with the G clef. Every clef symbol has a marker point. This marker point will determine where the note associated with the clef goes on the staff. In this case, the G note is associated with the G clef. And here is the marker. You see this circle? Wherever that marker goes is where the G note goes. So let's put it right here, where it appears nearly 100% of the time. Whatever appears inside that marker point, in this case this line, becomes the G. Oh, by the way, we use the lines and the spaces when we read music. You'll catch on to that soon. So when I put a note on that line, it becomes the G note. Once we know that that's the G, we can add the other notes in the alphabetical order we described earlier. So G to A, B, C, D, E, F, then G again. And if we go down from G, it's the F and on down to the E and D, etc. But now what happens if we move the clef up to a different line, like this one? See the circle? Now that line becomes the G note, and the rest of the notes follow. Let's move the clef again, say down to this space. Now that space becomes the G, and the rest of the notes follow. So even though you will almost never see it done, the clefs are movable. Understanding how they work helps us identify the notes no matter where the clef ends up. All right, now let's look at the F clef. On this clef, the marker spot is here, between the 2 dots. So whatever ends up between those 2 dots becomes the note associated with the clef, in this case, an F note. If we put it here, then the line between the 2 dots becomes the F. And the rest of the notes follow. Once again, this is where that clef usually appears, but what if we move it, say here? Then that line becomes F, and the rest of the notes follow. Let's move it to this space now. Now the space becomes the F, and the rest of the notes follow. Is this making sense? All right, let's look at the C clef. On this clef, the marker spot is here in this little crevice. So whatever ends up in that space becomes the note associated with the clef. In this case, it's a C clef, so a C note. So if we put the clef here, then the line in the crevice becomes the C. And again, the rest of the notes will follow. And if we move it, say here, then that line becomes C, and the rest of the notes follow. Now let's move it to this space. Now that space becomes C, and you got it. The rest of the notes follow. So it really is that simple. The main things you need to remember are there are 7 note names, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and they repeat in succession over and over. They move up and down in this order using both the spaces and lines on the stave. And then you need to remember the names of the 3 clefs, the G clef, the F clef, and the C clef, and then remember where their special markers are. Once you remember the clef names and their marker points, you should be able to just go up and down that alphabet using the lines and spaces to identify every note that appears. And there you go. Congratulations. You're actually reading music. I hope this was helpful.